Coming back to Genshin Impact after a 3-year hiatus, I'm reminded of how special this game is. It's an open-world action-adventure game that does a stellar job at capturing grandeur in its environmental designs and giving players the space to really feel the massive scale of the world, all the while employing intuitive map design to keep the open spaces fresh and interesting. One point of interest leads to a secret puzzle, which leads to another point of interest into another puzzle. This gameplay loop is masked elegantly by a natural feeling of, hey, what's over there? With one little distraction that tugs at your curiosity, you've now uncovered a secret underground labyrinth with a mystery to solve. Pair this up with an inspired art direction, great graphics, intuitive gameplay, and a simply stellar and highly consistent soundtrack that produces banger after banger, all of which are packaged and delivered to the game every 6 weeks as a content update. The world is constantly growing, making for a highly immersive experience. At its best moments, Genshin Impact captures the spirit of adventure. This crazy sense of adventure and scale is all the more impressive when considering that Genshin Impact has cross-progression between its PC and mobile clients. Anyone with a decent enough phone in 2025 will be able to explore it to their heart's content, either on their widescreen 4K monitors or at a cafe on their phone while waiting for a cup of coffee. And even though the mobile controls may not be the most fun for everybody, having the option to explore the world through a different medium with a consistent level of fidelity is rare in the gaming space. In this multi-platform, cross-progression open-world action space, several new games, such as Wuthering Waves, are iterating on Genshin Impact's once unique gameplay appeal. A free-to-play, console-like experience accessible anytime, anywhere. Which raises the question, what makes Genshin Impact worth playing in 2025? The answer depends on who you are and what you're looking for. Before we go any further, we gotta talk about something really important. Genshin Impact and its many rivals fall into a category of games called Gacha games, free-to-play, live service games whose business model hinges upon microtransactions. Because of this, Gacha games will exploit a variety of psychological tools to get players to spend money, either through fear of missing out, the desire to belong, or getting them hooked on the dopamine rush of getting lucky. To put it in simple terms, free-to-play games with microtransactions like loot boxes or gacha mechanics normalize the behavior of gambling, which helps them to make that profit. Gameplay systems, balancing, and account progression, the entire structure of these free-to-play games, all subtly feed into the game's profit generation system. No matter how generous or free-to-play friendly any of these games are, they are still exploitative and manipulative. To be clear, I am not here to belittle or judge anybody. Free-to-play games with microtransactions are the normal nowadays, but still, I cannot in good faith recommend this or any other gacha games to anybody who doesn't know or understand what the business model behind these games are. That does not mean that any free-to-play game with microtransactions is not worth playing. Every business still has to make money. What does matter, however, is how the businesses choose to spend the money that they gain from these systems. Does it help to enrich the player's experience? Does it help make the game better for you? Well, I personally cannot answer that because I've been away from the gacha space for too long. I can, however, share my experiences coming back to Genshin with all of you. How does it feel to come back and play this game after 3 years? This is a loaded question for those not in the know. In gacha games or free-to-play games with microtransactions, something known as power creep is the name of the game. It is the inevitable fact of the business model. Once a player fully builds out their accounts and gets to a certain point of progression, what keeps them spending on the game? This usually involves implementing stronger enemies that are difficult to beat with the current power ceiling of the characters that you have access to. So then they'll release a character or a product or equipment that can really make the difference in these difficult fights. So color me surprised that when I came back 3 years later to Genshin Impact, before pulling for any new characters or even leveling up any new gear, I was able to go toe-to-toe versus the endgame content with my old team and surprisingly come out on top. To be fair though, I used to be a Genshin content creator, so my account may be more stacked than the average player. However, if this was like any other gacha game that I've played in my past, I would definitely be way too weak to do any of the current content right now. Don't get me wrong, there definitely is power creep in Genshin Impact. The newer characters definitely do way more damage than the older characters, or have way more utility, whether inside or outside of combat. But that leads me to reason number 1 as to why I think Genshin Impact is worth your time. The main way in which I gauge a free-to-play game is by its power curve. That is, how pay-to-win does it get over time. This game now has a 4-year track record we can look back on to see how power creep impacts player progression. If you're free to play or have bad luck or don't want to spend any money, you can still clear 99% of the content within this game given time and strategy. Most games, like Genshin Impact or Wuthering Waves, have these types of characters called an S-rank unit or a 5-star unit, and then an A-rank unit or 4-star units. There is a statistical power difference between the S-ranks and the A-ranks, the 5 stars and the 4 stars. With the 5-star obviously being stronger because they are the prize characters, the ones you want to spend money to get that are there for a limited time. While the 4-star characters are usually the constellation prize or something that is much easier to obtain. And while you can earn currency to pull for these limited 5 stars in game, usually the game does not give you quite enough to get every character that you want. So you have to pick and choose wisely on which characters you want to spend your hard-earned currency on if you want to remain as a free-to-play player. All of this is to help entice you to spend money to pull more. Surprisingly, some of Genshin Impact's most meta-defining and strong characters have not only been around since launch, but are also 4-star characters that are easier to get than limited 5 stars. This is a complete oddity in the gacha space, and I really hope other games that are coming out in 2025 and beyond follow in Genshin's footsteps on giving 4-star characters a power budget that keeps them relevant for a long period of time. As a returning player, it feels really nice to have my time not be invalidated. I am able to pick up where I left off without worrying about what the best new character or equipment is. It seems that in this game, the majority of your combat power stems from your team composition and how well you make use of the game's core combat mechanic of elemental reactions. You'll be creating a team of 4 characters, and each of these characters can apply one of 7 different elements to enemies or themselves. When 2 different elements are applied to the same target, a reaction occurs. While each individual character kit themselves may be simple by design for ease of play, the game's complexity lies in this elemental reaction mechanic, and if you want to get sweaty and explore these depths, you can. However, speaking from experience, you really don't need to employ any of the complexities of this elemental reaction system to clear all of the content in this game. Here's an analogy to how Genshin Impact designs its power curve. Imagine for a second that all the characters are cars, and the newest characters being released can go at 100 miles an hour, while old characters go at 60 miles an hour. The road that takes you home has a minimum speed requirement of 40 miles an hour. So regardless of if you have an old character or a new character, you'll still be able to get home. One just gets home a little bit faster. If you are looking for a more combat-focused experience with a similar aesthetic and appeal to Genshin Impact, I would recommend also checking out Wuthering Waves and Zenless Zone Zero and comparing for yourself what you enjoy more, as those 2 games are more reaction-based and has a bit more skill expression. For my personal gaming preferences, I naturally gravitate to more combat-heavy experiences like playing Street Fighter 6 on a competitive level, Elden Ring, and Monster Hunter. I already get my combat fill from those games. When I'm looking for a gacha game or a mobile game, games that I can play on the go, on the couch, in my bed, I'm thinking about games that will help me unwind and reflect. But to be clear, I don't want an auto clicker or games that just play itself. When I'm playing a game, I'm here to play the game. I'm saying this because if you are somebody who wants a quick mobile fix that will only eat up 5 minutes of your day but give you a great sense of progression, or a combat dense game, Genshin Impact may not be for you. This game's focus on exploration and mostly frictionless gameplay puts me in that zone to think about what my next video script is for YouTube, or thinking about my last stupid mistake that I made in a ranked match. But at the same time, I'm still interacting with the game, I'm still exploring, and I'm still actually playing a game. With over 4 years of content updates, Genshin Impact has aged gracefully with 6 large nations to explore, each with their own cultures, themes, and gameplay mechanics, such as zip gliding, swimming, and possessing a dinosaur to fly around and chase a dragon. Oh, bro, that's kind of cool actually. If I was a new player and I opened up the map and looked through all the things that I could explore in this game, I'd be so overwhelmed. There's so much content here, but you're never gonna run out of things to do. If you're looking for a game to really get lost in, Genshin Impact seems like the perfect thing for you, especially as a free-to-play player. To add to this, you can also explore this massive world with up to 3 other people. Back in 2022, I made a review video of the co-op in Genshin Impact, and to my disappointment, in 2025, not much has changed. If you're interested in the nuances of the co-op in this game, there should be a link on the top right of the screen or in the description below. Even with the complaints though, I don't want to minimize how awesome it is to be able to play with friends no matter what platform you or they are on. I actually had this happen where my non-gamer friend wanted to get into gaming and asked me for a suggestion. So I asked her what console or device she had. She told me she only had an iPhone. So I'm just looking down the list of co-op games we can play, and I'm just like, alright, I guess you're downloading Genshin Impact. She's like, what the heck is that? So she loads into the game, immediately ignores Paimon's yapping, and just explores the entirety of the world. It was really fun to watch, but also just the possibility of playing this game with other people or getting people into gaming using Genshin Impact was something I never expected to do. And that's all thanks to crossplay, being able to play between different devices. If I'm on the PS5 and my friend's on PC and my other friend's on Android, we can all still chill and play together. If I had to pick a keyword to describe Genshin Impact, it would be a toss-up between variety and quality. Genshin Impact possesses many gameplay modes. If you want to play a musical rhythm game, well, you can. If you want to build or decorate a town like The Sims, you can. And if you want to experience true fair PvP in a gacha game, Genshin Impact has implemented one of the most genius solutions to giving players a competitive mode in implementing an actual card game with its own meta, deck building strategies, and progression systems that are tied into the main game. I was so surprised to see it actually being implemented in story as well, but that may just be personal preference because I really love card games, so I love seeing this TCG be an actual thing in Genshin Impact. That's cool. That is so cool. All the cards you can unlock in this mode do not require any form of real money, and you can't even convert real money into the card game. There's no booster pack or RNG. You see the card you want, you purchase it with the in-game currency for the card game, and you're good to go. And you got plenty of other activities like fishing or limited time events, like right now there's a beetle fighting event going on. It doesn't take too long and it's a good change of pace, but one of the main drawbacks of Genshin Impact that took me out of the game the first time was the FOMO on events. There were so many events at one point where I didn't have enough time with my busy schedule to play the game and then play the events. And then once the event's over, another event kicks in. I just felt like I was constantly doing the events and never the main story itself. Events in Genshin Impact don't really repeat like that, and they offer really good rewards, so you don't want to miss out on them. Something that I will praise Genshin for, however, is that they pioneered how to be more generous with events for gacha games. I'm used to gacha games where you have to grind every single day from when the event starts to the event ends to get that one item that is actually really worthwhile. In Genshin Impact, however, it's flip-flopped. The enticing game-changing rewards that you really want are front-loaded. By doing the bare minimum, you'll be able to get that item, and the rest is just extra to help boost your account, but you don't really need it. So if you are really busy and don't really care about the story, you'll still be able to bag the rewards that you actually want without wasting too much time. If I can recall correctly, I believe Wuthering Waves follows this same reward structure, but I can't speak to any other gacha game. If you have other examples of gacha games being nice and generous with their events to players, let us know in the comments below. And while you're down there, support your boy by hitting that like button and consider subscribing for more content like this. Thanks. Now that I've sufficiently glazed Genshin Impact, it's time to talk about some of the negatives. A majority of the complaints that I see online stem from Genshin Impact's nature as a gacha game. Things like your character progression being gated by a stamina system, or the fun characters being locked behind a paywall, and that's fair, honestly. Without interacting with the gacha systems, the characters that you'll have access to are not the most interesting or nuanced from a moment-to-moment gameplay perspective, whether inside or outside of combat. This is especially true when comparing the base roster to some of the newer characters that are being released today, who far and away have better team synergy or traversal options in the open world that make them a lot more fun to play. This is definitely power creep in a way. Mobility creep is a real thing, which can trivialize a lot of the older content if you're not too careful. But I will say, this mobility creep does make exploring the vast open worlds a lot more fun, at least for me. The issue with mobility creep in exploration games is that most of the time, when it's done right, map design is like an invisible hand that guides you from one point of interest to another. But because players can circumnavigate a lot of things with their mobility options, the creators can't really guide them as efficiently or as secretly as they would like to. But that's just me shouting into the void again, because I would assume a lot of players would enjoy having the mobility creep to get to their loot a lot faster, to earn more currency to pull for the characters. Map design be damned. Another thing that really grates me is Genshin Impact's story. It has very high highs and very low lows. The plot premise is super interesting, and the main story beats can be really hype and cathartic. But to get there, however, it is such a slog. Information conveyed to you either through dialogue or text scattered throughout the world are oftentimes overly wordy and tends to repeat itself over and over. A lack of summarize or skip feature for dialogue in this game makes questing quite a chore at times, which is a shame because some of the payoffs to the side stories are actually quite heartfelt. But because of how bloaty the dialogue can be, most people already check out before they even get to that payoff, so they just tend not to care. Perhaps having these longer quest lines be fully voiced could help alleviate these pains, or at the very least, if you're not going to implement a skip button, make sure your text is concise. In the story department, it feels very much that the devs don't trust the players to pay attention but want them to pay attention by force anyways, even when they know that players that don't care will still not care. As for the stories itself, that's subjective. There are plenty of characters and side stories and plot lines that you'll be able to find something you enjoy here. And if nothing else, I personally appreciate how cohesive the world feels. Going from zone to zone and experiencing different character stories, it is clear that the devs have put in a lot of time and thought into making each region feel distinct in its cultures and overall vibe. To leave off on a positive note, the vibes in Genshin Impact are insane. Sometimes the music and the environments alone will move me so emotionally. It's weird, man, but I love it. Sometimes just seeing a certain sight and getting the grandeur of it all, it instills me with a sense of wonder and adventure. If you're looking for a world to get lost in and explore, Genshin Impact may be the game for you. This game demands a lot of time from you if you want to clear all of its content, but that's the thing. There is no need to leave every stone unturned. You can explore at your own pace, and maybe you'll never uncover all the secrets that Teyvat has to offer you, and that's fine. So to answer if Genshin Impact is worth playing in 2025, I'd say yeah, it's worth a try. It's free to play, and if you like it or don't like it, you can make that decision for yourself, and then just uninstall it if you don't care for it. I really appreciate that my time spent years prior still matter today, and that many quality of life features have been implemented into the game to make the experience a lot more streamlined and frictionless, all the while implementing new modes and mechanics that keep the game fresh and interesting. And perhaps the most positive thing of all is that Genshin Impact is wildly successful financially, so there's no fear of termination of service and the game shutting down prematurely. But all of that said, that's just my perspective on the game. How do you feel about Genshin Impact? Let us know in the comments below. To be honest, I feel like a Genshin Impact tourist as I'm sitting in the Monster Hunter Wilds waiting room. When that game releases late next month, I'm not sure how much I'll be playing Genshin Impact, but time will tell. If you enjoyed hanging out with me, maybe you enjoy this other video on screen right now as well. But regardless, I hope you had a good time. My name is Varsona, and I'll see you in the next video.